Okay, I think I'm recording now. Kia ora everybody and good evening. We're going to have a little bit of a play tonight with Pick a Path. Some people call them Choose Your Own Adventure Story. And this toolkit is actually designed for beginners. So apologies if I go a little bit too slow, but what I thought I would do first is I'd go through my slides and then I will show you how I've created a story. And I've all put everybody into a Google group where we can share our stories. And I shared my story. It's not finished, but I started writing it for this toolkit. And I want to show you how to get started, and perhaps if you'll finish it, that's good, but if you don't, you can just put your story in progress into the Google group. Okay, so I'm going to present my screen. How is that looking, Cam?
Yep, perfect.
Excellent. Okay, so here we are. This is the slide presentation, and we're going to look how to use not just a Google form but also Google Drawing to plan and create a pick a path story. We can use words, we can use images, we'll use video, and we will teach a little bit about the branching logic of computational thinking. So if we go to slide 4, oh, by the way, if you have a question in the course of this toolkit, just ask, put it in the chat box, and Cam will let me know what the questions are, and I'll answer them then. So what is a pick-a-path story? I don't know whether you've actually come across these stories before, but they're stories that are created with alternatives. So a story is written and then the reader has to make a decision about which path to take. And they can be constructed using Google Slides, but this toolkit is using Google Forms. And on slide 4, there are 6 examples of stories written by a range of age levels from year 3 right through to adults. And I'd just like to give you, has everybody got the slides open? Because I'd like to just give you a couple of minutes just to have a look at one. Just choose one and click on the link. So I'll just go into Alien Invasion and start reading the story and make your choices and see where it leads you. So my clock says it's 7:07. I'm just going to give you 3 minutes to 10 past 7 for you to take a look at any one of those stories there on slide 4. Can everybody do that?
There's furious nodding going on. Everyone's reading their stories.
Okay, wonderful. 3 minutes. Okay. 3 minutes is a long time when you're just sitting there waiting.
Not when
Okay.
we're reading about genies granting world peace.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I read that one too, Jenna.
What was that? The genies?
Yeah, the surprise in the attic.
Yeah. That one's got quite a lot of direct speech in it, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And not many images.
No.
I think that's the only story in that group of 6 that uses direct speech.
Yeah, I like it. Very, someone wanting to write a novel. Yeah, chapter book. Yeah, well written.
Yes. Any other comments from people who have read other stories?
Not yet.
Just turn your microphone on and share.
Manpreet read The Tribe.
Mm-hmm.
I found it really interesting because my students are into writing narratives, and I just think that this kind of pick apart story is going to really excite them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll definitely use it. So thank you so much. Didn't think of teaching a narrative through this way.
Okay. Cool. All right, let's carry on to slide 5. Why write a pick apart story? Well, I think it encourages writing for pleasure, and I think about how the people who read my stories will be entertained. I actually wrote The Dog and the Rabbit, and I asked one of the people in Kotuitui who doesn't work in the schools to read my story and to see how many times it took her to be killed before a rabbit wasn't killed, and it did take a couple of attempts. So I was really interested in her feedback. So there's definitely, from my part at least, wanting to entertain people and see how they enjoyed it. It's creative. It's personalised. So a child can write a pick-apart story of just a few sections of Google form, or they might write a very, very complicated, intricate story there's no limit to the number of sections that you can create, I don't think, in a Google form. So, and students can choose images, they can choose video, so they can make their story their own. Students can collaborate on the same story, which is something that they can do together, and they can create and do something collaborative. It is fun to be the reader, as you've just experienced, and it teaches this branching logic, which is changes what page or a question the reader goes to based on how they answer the current question. So slide 6. So perhaps step 1 isn't making a plan in Google Drawings. If you're a teacher, step 1 would cover whatever you're teaching, and it might cover a topic of inquiry, but the actual physical writing might not even start with a Google drawing. You might start with a Google Doc. In fact, some people start with the Google form and they just create from the form. I was taught to start from a Google drawing, but you can maybe for students in higher levels start at the form stage, although the drawing part is really good to, I think, map out the ideas to start with, and then when students start writing in the form, that's when the ideas often get developed. So start with something simple, take your time, plan and draft, and go through to the end like that, and you might change the story as the plan gets developed. I mean, I don't know how, particularly how novelists write their stories, but perhaps they don't have the end in mind when they start. So, neither do we have to.
Angela?
Yes?
Manpreet says, when you say start a form, do you start planning first or plan on a doc and then start writing on the form?
I plan on the drawing first or the doc first, and I'm going to show you drawings and then start on a form, but I just lay out the very, as you can see on the right of slide 6 there, that's the planning for the dog and the rabbit story. It's not everything that's actually written in the form, it's only a part of it. So once I start writing, I start elaborating. Okay, and yep. And a tip is to number your boxes as you go so that you make sure that you cover all of those ideas in your sections on your form. So we'll have a look at that. So once you've got your plan, however that's written, then you start writing the story in Google Forms. And this is the dog and the rabbit story. You add your title, you personalize your theme and font, and then you add the writing. This can be a challenge for younger learners. They just tend to put the choices and not the story. So that's why it's important to have the bones of the story before they start writing. But older learners might be able to start with the form. And you add images and videos to different sections, and you can add images to multi-choice options. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then you use multi-choice questions to send readers to different pages, actually different sections. So you can see here on slide 8, it says, towards dog's house, go to section 4, the rabbit died. So we're going to do that soon. And then we can also add video and images to enhance the story. So it's not your, well, it is your turn, but let's go through it together. So here is my my plan for my tour around Sydney. So I created, this is just the very start of it. So I'm thinking that I'm going to create a pick a path story on a tour around Sydney. Maybe it's an inquiry topic based around Australia somehow, and some of the interesting parts of Australia. So I created a drawing. So if you would like to go into a folder, perhaps the folder of toolkits, and whatever folder, or create a folder called Pick a Path. So in Google Drive, I've actually got a Pick a Path folder. So go to New, More, and create a Google drawing. Give it a title, Pick a Path, Story 1. And you've had no sort of pre-writing exercises to think about what you're going to write about. So think of something really quickly. Make your first text box on here. And start writing something. So my prepared little piece is around the tour around Sydney. So imagine that you are going on a holiday to explore Sydney. The first thing you do is you fly to Sydney and you get ready to spend a few days sightseeing. Where would you like to go first? And the two places in Sydney that are the most, I think, the most well known for tourists are the Opera House and Bondi Beach. So section 1 will be, or section 2 will go to the Opera House, and section 3 will go to Bondi Beach, because the first section is going to be this part up here. And then for each choice, there has to be a couple of, there has to be a decision to be made. Okay, so if I go to the Opera House, something happens at the Opera House that leads me to make a decision. So when I go to the Opera House, or when the reader goes to the Opera House, there are huge crowds waiting for an Elton John concert. So you think about whether to come back later or to walk through the crowds. So the reader makes a decision either to walk through the crowds or to come back later. So in my story, the first choice to walk through the crowds. There's the greatest stampede in Australian history, which you get crushed to death in. Obviously, the story finishes there. And at that point, you can ask the reader if they'd like to finish or they'd like to go back to the beginning. So I'm going to show you that. If number 3 wasn't the end of the story, you'd have to have another 2 options here. Okay? And so you can see how complicated it can get. Number 4, you decide to come back and take a stroll around Circular Quay in the Rocks District. You get thirsty, so you decide on a drink. So here, if I was going to do the next 2 options, I would have 2 text boxes, and I would label them for, I'd probably have Bondi Beach options 5 and 6. So this would be 7, this would be number 7, and this would be number 8. And I would insert my arrows. That would go there, and it would go there. Okay, so if you decide that on one of the branches the story doesn't stop, it's going to get really complicated. So keep it simple to start with. Okay, so we've got the beginning of a story. If you just want to think of setting the scene and a couple of alternatives, so setting the scene in your Google drawing and write a couple of alternatives, 1 and 2. Could everybody do that now? Say, will that just take a couple of minutes? Give you a couple of minutes. I'll try and write another one.
Okay, so we're starting our own Google drawing?
Start in your own Google drawing.
Okay.
Call it Pick a Path Story 1 or whatever. Set the scene and then have a choice of 2 things. You could have a choice of 3 or 4 things, but then you're going to have branches off of each one of those. So that's why we're going to keep it simple. Okay, so I'm just writing mine's very boring. As long as you've got something. I always find that students are much more imaginative than I am. Anyway, so something like this, and you are going to insert an arrow. So you've got this, the setting, and here are the 2 choices. Okay, how are people going? Have you got something that you could start writing a story with? Good. Okay, so next thing, in that folder, if you go back to the folder, you've got your Drive open. You're going to go More, Google Forms. Everybody gets this lovely purpley lavender colour form. So now it's time to give your form a name. So I'm actually going to go back to Tour Around Sydney because I've got more of the story written. So Tour Around Sydney. So whatever the name of your story is, doesn't sound very exciting. Okay, so once you've got your title there, the first thing you do is you go into the settings and you don't probably want to collect email addresses because it's going to look strange on the form. And you don't want to restrict it to users in your domain because otherwise people who find your Pick a Path story from outside your school won't be able to access it. So take that one off, and you don't want it to limit it to one response because a reader might want to come back to your story later, sometime in the future, and try it again. So save. So take away collect email addresses, take away restricting to users in your domain, and save it. And that's where students can go wrong. They forget to do that and then they don't understand, perhaps when they share it on their blog, why other students in perhaps the Tuhi Mai Tuhi Atu class can't read the story. Okay, next we're going to customize the theme and the color. So if I go up here, we can choose an image for the header. Now there are lots of themes that you can choose from. I looked in travel and I recognise headers that students have used in forms before and in the story. One of the stories on our slide there has this one as the header. Or you can go to your albums or you can upload photos. So you could find a photo and you could download it, and I'm going to select a photo from my computer, and it is view of Sydney Harbour. And when you get a photo like this, an image like this, you can choose what part of it you want on the header of your Google form. You want that's quite nice, or you might want that area of Sydney. Let's go up here like that. Select, and here it comes. And it looks a bit not very nice with this colour, so I'm going to choose another colour and give it a nice blue colour. And the font style, at the moment it's just basic, but I like playful. So if you want to just go ahead, choose a theme. If you've got a photo, or you can search for one, or just do something a little bit to individualize the story. Okay, so we're ready to get started. So we go back to our drawing, and what I suggest is that you just copy and paste that into your if this is your first section. Imagine you're going on a holiday to explore Sydney, you fly to Sydney and you get ready. Now at this point, this is where some writers are able to elaborate. So the first thing you do is you fly to Sydney and you get ready to spend a few days sightseeing. The weather is absolutely absolutely fabulous. So, an outdoors activity is in order. So what you've written on your drawing, your plan is a start, but you can, you can write more in there. And that's where you can do the direct speech and stuff like that. This is the story part. So where would you like to go first, the Opera House or Bondi Beach? And at the moment it says untitled question. So it's going to probably choose multiple choice over here for you. Google's very clever. So, or you can put this here. Where would you like to go first? Leave it and take that out and put that as the question. The Opera House or Bondi Beach. Or this might be, where would you like to go first? So, put that there. Okay, Opera House. And we can look over here, see, we can add an image. So we can add an image and we can search an image of the Sydney Opera House. Here we go. And add our other option, Bondi Beach. Oops, it's probably got a capital B. And then we can go like this and search. There's a nice photo and put it in. And make sure it's required because it is required. Okay. So what I do next, and it's not actually in the slides, and it's something that I use to sort of keep myself looking to see how the form looks to the reader. So I actually go up to send and I get the link and I shorten it and I copy it and I actually send it to another person, another Gmail address or another email address. So I send it to, I'm going to compose and I'm going to send it to my other Gmail address, pick a path. And I want to send it, but I can't actually see the send button. There we go, send it. Okay, that's not it yet because that's my old form, but let's have a look at it. Oh, here we come. We're just waiting for it to arrive. Okay, it hasn't arrived yet. Okay, we'll just go back and we'll keep going. Where are we? Okay, so if you just want to go up to send, go to the link, shorten the URL, copy that, and then send it to another one of your accounts. I'm sure you've got more than one account. And that will give you...
Why would you send it to yourself instead of using the view option?
I just think this is probably how students that you work with might be sending it to each other.
Yeah.
So that's why... That's the experience that the kids are going to possibly give to each other. So you can see now it's in here. And what's really nice about the way that it looks is that when you created that question, I'll go back, you can see that the images are vertical. But when you use two images in your story, they actually come out horizontal. It's pretty neat, isn't it? I like that. I think it looks nice. Cool. Okay, so let's carry on now. So if I go back to my story, and I've got, if I went to the opera house, this is what happens at the opera house. So I'm just going to grab that. So let's go back to tour around, and let's go to here. See these two lines? It says add section. So you need to add a section. And now I am going to my box with number 1, and I just put the story in. Oops, that's the title. Sorry, I've got to get rid of that. I'm going to put it, I don't want it in the section title would probably be the opera house, because that's where you've chosen to go. The opera house is amazing. There are huge crowds waiting for Elton John. You think about whether to come back later or walk through the crowds. You're going to add a question because you've got 2 options. What will you do? And you need multiple choice. Is everybody following?
I haven't had any questions or anything.
Okay, cool. I think up here in my original in my pick a path that I did on this little story, I've added a video in here. So I went into YouTube and I looked for a crowd outside Sydney Opera House. And I found something. It wasn't Prince Harry though. But anyway, let's just choose it for now.
No.
And videos just go in there really, really easily. Okay, so what will you do? You will walk, come back later, or walk through the crowds. Okay. So you've started building, you've got section 1, you've got section 2. Okay. So if you go back up here, you've come here and you're making a decision. So we need to create another, I'm just thinking about what I'm doing now because we haven't gone to Bondi Beach. Sorry, going back here. So we've gone to the Opera House, and then up here, if you click on these 3 dots, go to section based on answer. So if this child or the reader clicks on Opera House, you want them to go to section 2. Okay, and that will go down here. Let's create another section. Section 3, which is going to be Bondi Beach. Oops. Come back up here. Continue, go to section 3. So that's how you use the logic of where it's going to go. So if the person clicks on Opera House, they'll be taken to section 2, and if they click on Bondi Beach, they'll be taken to section 3. And let's have a look at the little story that I've shared with myself. Just want to make sure that it works. So I'm going to, where would you like to go first? Opera House. Next. Here's the video that can be watched.
Britain's Prince Harry met members of the public at the Sydney Opera House on Thursday as he nears the end of his month-long attachment with the Australian Army.
Well, it wasn't Elton John, but it was Prince Harry. But you get the idea. Okay? Cool. Right. So I think the only thing that I haven't shown you yet is how to restart the story and go back.
Yeah.
So let's go to my first tour of Sydney, and I think it's probably this one. I'll just have a look. Oh no, that's my Prince Harry. Let's go to this one. I should have called them A and B or something like that. So we've got, oh, yep, somebody's responded to it. That's cool. So we've got the tour around Sydney in section 1. We've got the first sightseeing location, and I've used those pictures. And then if I just click in here, you will see that that is going to section 3, which is the Opera House. And then this one, Bondi Beach, is going to section 4, which is go to Bondi Beach. Put a big image in there. The water looks very inviting. What will you do? Go for a swim or have a surf? I actually haven't gone further than that decision. I haven't made sections for those two choices. But I had made a decision for walking through the crowds. Walk through the crowds. You attempt to walk through the crowds. And there is a great stampede, the greatest stampede in Australian history, which you get crushed to death. So you offer the reader to restart or not to restart, and it would go to submit. Come back later, and I started carrying on. And then I actually did 4 choices of drink just to see how they would look. Let's have a look. So I will go to the Opera House, go next. I decide to come back later because this will take me to downtown Sydney. And if you want to put 4 choices in, you can, but then you will need to have options for each of these choices that the reader would make. And I haven't finished my story. Okay, so this one is the one that is linked in the Google group. So I've put you all into the Google group, and you can add a new topic. So you would have received an email from me that you are in a Google group, and then you can just add a new topic, and you can write your name, pick a path story, and you can either attach it or attach it to the writing using this link, button down here. Just get rid of that. Okay, using this link button here. So I'm just going to stop. Oh, I'm sitting in the dark. Didn't realize that because the sun's gone. Hang on, I just turn on my light, the light. Okay, so it's pretty cool. How are you going?
Did you say, Jenna?
Yes, each option is a new section. Yep. It's really how you decide. Just make sure that you number them and that you cover every number, Jenna. I do it my way, and perhaps other people do it a different way. Yeah, it's you can see the year 3, 4 examples that I've got. There's not a lot of writing, but that's okay. They can use images and video. Yes, it might be good to pair them up. I haven't actually tried that because I did this in CyberSmart. A class last year, some students did work together, but I did find that one was doing more of the work than the other one. But you have a play around with it, and please share any examples in that group, because it'd be really neat for us to have a little range of things that we can have a look at and perhaps give us ideas. Oh, that's fine, Mark. Yeah, thank you for joining me on a, Wednesday evening. Yeah, cool. And if you've got any questions, just drop me a line or ask the question in the Google group. And please remember to give feedback, because that's on the last slide. And you're welcome to share the presentation with anybody else in your school or your cluster who you think might be interested. And of course, this recording is being recorded, and it will be in the folder for anybody to access.
You're welcome, Manpreet.
Yep. And so you can ask them to write whatever you like. I mean, my ideas are probably just very fundamental and basic, but yeah, there was a student that wrote a story about a haunted house that I couldn't find on her blog, but it was really cool, and it had scary noises and it had footsteps and all sorts in it. So students are really creative. Have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Cam. All right.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.